Welcome to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, where we're all about mixing tried and true strategies that actually work with the magic of manifestation and the science of programming your unconscious mind so that you walk away feeling integrated, inspired, and aligned. I'm Renee Bowen, certified life and business coach, professional photographer, middle-aged wife, and mom to now 3 grown kids. I've built 2 multiple 6-figure businesses with 0 business training by digging in, learning the methods, and now I'm here to pass them all on to you. From photography and business strategies to energy healing, human design, and the basics of manifestation, we cover it all here. I'm here to help you embrace your multi-passionate brains and lean into the fastest and most efficient ways to reach your goals, whatever they may be. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, or maybe you're just here for the woo-woo, let's dive in and explore all the exciting ways to take your life, business, and self-improvement to the next level. Thanks for joining me, and get ready to be inspired. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I hope you had a really awesome 4th of July, and hopefully you were able to take some time off, because that was like a weird week, right? Like having it kind of in the middle of the week like that. I ended up just taking off the day after the 4th because I was busy up until then. And then I left and went and visited my daughter up in Santa Cruz for a few days, got back on Sunday, and then went right into recording and working. And so it's kind of been a little weird and discombobulated. So I hope that you are back to normal, jumping in and getting some stuff done. So today on the podcast, I have a treat for you guys, because sometimes I get these questions from y'all about, taxes and business and legal stuff. And I am not a tax professional and I'm not a lawyer. So I have one on the show today to answer some questions for you guys. I have Braden Drake on the podcast today. And if you don't know who that is, Braden is a California licensed attorney and tax professional. His tagline is pretty awesome. It's your gay best friend here to help you get your legal, tax, and financial shit legit. He works primarily with online and creative small business owners through his law firm, the Not Your Average Law Firm, and his online courses and his membership. He also has a podcast as well called Unfuck Your Biz, and he's just really, really knowledgeable. Also, really fun to chat with. So I know you're going to get a ton out of it. Let's go right into the show, and I want to hear what you guys think of it after, okay? So let me know. Hey, Braden, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm very excited. Always down for a podcast.
Well, I love yours, and I love your whole brand, your whole vibe. We're both Enneagram 7s, so I do have to lead with that.
Okay, perfect. Yes. 6-wing or 8-wing?
8. What about you?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same.
It's interesting. It is pretty close, depending on the day for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can see the 8-wing and the Unfuck Your Biz branding in my business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I totally love that. And it's really interesting to me too, because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are 7s. I have a lot of friends in the business who are 7s, but I think it was really surprising to me when I got those results. I did kind of expect to be more of an 8, but when I really think about it, I do lead with my 7, like 100%. So it makes sense for me. What about you?
Yeah, same. I do. So I'm like a very, very firm believer in attract and repel marketing. And I feel like in someone with a strong 8-wing or an Enneagram 8 themselves can lean much more naturally into that repel piece of marketing. And a lot of other types would maybe be more scared to do that.
Yeah. And I do think that the 7, definitely kind of puts us out there probably before we're ready. Right.
This is fun. Do most of your podcast listeners get into the Enneagram? Because we didn't even preface this. I feel like if, on most other podcasts, if we were having this conversation, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, that's the whole point of this. Like, I want to, I'm totally into that stuff. I'm a personality quiz geek just in general because I have a degree in psychology. And so like you name the test, I've probably taken it. And human design too, I think is really interesting. So I'm really interested in a lot of different things. I'm not like certified in these things, but I'm super interested in it. And I do think it comes into play a lot with like how we run our businesses, but also like you said, the attract and repel, which is really an interesting that you brought it up. Not a lot of people talk about that enough. I think. And so let's kind of lean into that a little bit, like the whole repel marketing. I know a lot of my like photographers, especially in like the beginning phases of their business, they're not necessarily thinking about that. They're trying to just attract, and, just trying to get like there's maybe like a desperation for clients.
Right.
And so that repelling can be just as important. Talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you see that play out like in your brand?
Sure.
How has that worked well for you, basically?
Yeah, well, first of all, like when it comes to attract and repel marketing, it's like I really have this belief that it's better to have like 100 diehard fans than like 1,000 lukewarm fans, right? So it's not necessarily bad that you're repelling people because other people are going to be like, well, that's really cool. Like, I really like that. And now they connect with you more. So I'll get straight into politics and give you a really clear example because I essentially posted what did I post? Okay. So I had a job ad on Indeed. And in the job ad, we wrote like, you might be a good fit if, and you might not be a good fit if. And it said, you might not be a good fit if one of our bullet points said, if you voted for Trump, right? So like, you can't get any more direct than that.
Yeah.
And I don't have a beef with like all Republicans, and we don't need to get into that. But like in our business, like we talk a lot about a woman's right to choose and Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ plus rights. So if you're not on board with these things, then you're just not going to be a good fit in our company culture, most likely. And we're not telling you that you can't work for us under these circumstances, because that is legally an iffy question. But we're going to say that you probably wouldn't be comfortable here. And why would you want to work here? Go work with someone else who aligns better with your values. But I posted this job ad in a Facebook group. It wasn't like I didn't copy and paste the job ad. I said, hey, we're hiring for this position. Here's a link to the Indeed post.
Okay.
And this was a Facebook group with like 100,000 people in it. And someone commented about that bullet point and they were very unhappy. And then my post ended up getting removed. They removed my post for hate speech and bullying was the rule cited, which I thought was bullshit. So again, like my Enneagram 8 wing, I screenshotted the post that I made, screenshotted the group, put it on my Instagram stories, made an Instagram post about it. And I think we lost like 70 Instagram followers that day. Like it was the most engaged post we'd had in 6 months. A lot of other people was like, this was amazing. I'm going to work with you when I need to get my taxes done. So we pissed a lot of people off, but we brought a lot of people closer to our business who felt better aligned with our values. So that's one really good example. But I told this story with some friends that I met in Texas a couple weeks ago. And this woman said, well, I have a more conservative audience. Is that an issue for you? And I said, no, just knowing that like, if you invite me on your podcast, a lot of your people might not like me. And that's not a problem for me, but it might be a problem for you. And I was like, would you ever vocalize your politics? And she said, no, because it's not important to me. She said, my personal political opinions are important, but she's like, I don't really care if the people that I work with are float one way or the other. And that's totally fine. That's up to you and your business.
This is a really good topic. I hear this a lot. I mean, I think that it was the last, few years in particular. We've kind of like have been around a while, right? Like, so like when the beginning days of Instagram and like the early days of all like the branding and the curation of Instagram, one of the things that a lot of people, marketing experts, I guess, would tell you is like, don't really talk about that because, that's your brand, and that we are so far, I think, away from that now, right? And it just like, as an evolution, like as humans, right? We evolve, but our branding and the way that we present ourselves, and I always tell this to my coaching students and the people that I speak with, that's what that word authentic, that word gets thrown around a lot. And I know we're kind of sick of it, but at the end of the day, people really do want to connect with a person behind the brand. And the more touch points, like you said, the repelling part of it can be just as powerful because you don't want to work with every single person necessarily. And they may not, like, it just might not be a good fit. And that's totally okay. Everybody has to make that choice, I think, for themselves and their own brand. Yeah.
It also, I mean, it really depends what you're doing in your business too. So we do group coaching, like we do group coaching calls, and like people talk about it like doesn't sound like it would be that serious, but people end up talking about their back taxes and all the debt that they have and these kind of personal issues. And people get emotional on our group coaching calls. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade. And my program is totally unrelated to that. But my students want to ask me questions about it because I'm a lawyer. So We talk about
Right.
it. And I think when most people join my programs, they know that it's a safe space for people who most likely like believe, like have a certain set of closely held beliefs, right? So that's important. But then I was just talking to a copywriter friend the other day who works in the wedding industry, and they said that they had a client who wanted on their website that they wouldn't work with LGBTQ plus couples. And the copywriter was like, no, we're not going to write that. And she's like, what do you do now? She said, should I fire them and give them a refund? Should I just tell them that we'll finish the project, but we're not going to write that? Like, what do you do? So when it comes to those kind of things, I'm like, well, if you make your core values and your beliefs so well known in your business, it's very unlikely that you're going to end up getting a client like that in the first place.
That's a really good advice, because it's true. And it's all about how you brand yourself and position yourself and talk about like the things that are important to you and the things that you do believe in. And I think that that is true. When it's done well, you should be able to get a feel for someone's, vibe. You got to vibe it out a little bit.
Yeah. And if you don't have a problem writing that person's website and saying that they're not going to work with gay people, knock yourself out, go for it. And I actually am being honest. Like, as a gay person, I always say I would much rather someone be like, I'm a little bit homophobic and I don't want to work with you, than me find that out like halfway through our project. Right. Of course, very few people are bold enough to write that in today's day and age. But honestly, it's just like, I think everyone is best served through transparency, because everyone then gets to work with people that they're going to connect with better, and you get a better service.
I definitely agree. I find myself more and more, trying to lean into that as much as possible, because, I was definitely brought up, not like that. Right. Like, so it's like going against the programming of being brought up. I was brought up in the deep South. First of all, there's a reason why I moved to California like 30 years ago, but I love, and I love my family and all of that. But yeah, there's definitely like this undoing that a lot of us tend to want to do, and we feel pulled to do it. And I feel like there's sometimes a lot of pressure to stay like how you were raised. And so whenever I see somebody like fully expressing who they are, I don't know, I just love it. I feel like it is inspiring to me as well. And it gives me like inspiration to do the same, to be, because I always tell people, the more you can be, the better, because you want your business to stand out. You want to stand out, whatever you're doing, whatever kind of creative you are, you definitely want to stand out. And that is like the best way you can stand out, is to just be you, because there is nobody else like you. But if you're trying to fit in with everybody else, how are they going to tell? What's the difference?
I have my friend Britt. I haven't chatted with her in a while. We need to reconnect. But she had a business called Marketing Personalities, where she basically teaches you how to market based on your Myers-Briggs result. And her kind of business tagline is, when I feel good, my audience feels good. And I think that's so smart, because it's true. Like, when 100%. Something is coming from a place of authenticity, people can see it. I was also going to say, you brought this up earlier, but I should have pulled this up before we hit record so we could talk about it, because I just did all my human design bullshit like last week. I was at a conference and someone asked me like what my chart was. And I'm like, I don't know. I've never gotten into astrology. So I text my mom, asked her what my birth time was. And she told me like 2 p.m. And I was like, I don't think that's right. It's like 10. It's 10 something. And so she went and got my baby book out of the garage and like looked it up. And all I can tell you is that I'm a Virgo. So I'm a Virgo.
Same.
Virgo something. And then my rising sign is Libra. And I don't know anything about that other than I posted it on Instagram, and several people told me that was one of the sweetest charts they've seen, whatever that means.
That is hilarious. Okay, so first of all, I'm a Virgo too, and a Libra rising. So there's a reason why I've been following you for a while.
Good.
It's a vibe.
I thought it was funny that people said I was sweet, because I always feel like I'm kind of a bitch. But like,
same.
Yeah, I think my friend in college nailed it when she said, it's not that you're a bitch. She's like, you're actually very nice. You're just bitchy. There's a difference.
Absolutely. And also Beyonce. That's all you got to say is we have the same rising and sun as Beyonce. That's all.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Good company then.
Whatever. So good. And human design is super fun. Like, it's really, really something that I use in my coaching. Like, I always pull their charts, because again, I don't know enough about, I'm not certified in that, but I know enough to like understand how to coach someone better when I know their human design. And it's really like almost like a fast track to kind of get into like how they work and what works better for them. Because again, like I work with a bunch of creatives, they're all neurodiverse. Most of them have ADHD that's undiagnosed and all over the place. You know what I mean? And it's like, why? And then most of them come to me and they're like, why can't, what's wrong with me? And I'm like, nothing's wrong with you. You just got to like realize that those are your superpowers. You've just been told that they're limitations, but they're your superpowers. Okay. We could talk about that all day, but I want to get into, I want to like pick your lawyer tax brain for a second, right? Because, put your 8 hat on. And I got to put my 8 hat on because I do have a lot of photographers, whether it's on TikTok or in my Facebook groups, whenever I'm sort of talking about business stuff and like how to like get really serious about your business, inevitably I'm going to get like DMs and comments about like, when should I get serious about this? I'm a sole prop. When should I do an LLC? Should I do an LLC? Should I do an S Corp? All of these things. And I'm like, first of all, I send them to you. That's my
right.
And then I'm like, go see him because that's not my expertise. But, I can at least help support you a little bit in there and like make sure that they are doing the right things. What do you tell somebody who is maybe sort of like transitioning from hobbyist to wanting to be a professional? When do they make that leap to get serious? And what does that look like for you?
Well, I mean, you got to do it from the jump, right? So I have a book.
Yep, I have
right here. Unfuck Your Biz. 450 pages of fun. And I teach this framework in my book. If anyone goes to my website, my blog posts are like 50% of my book content. So you can get a lot of this there and then through my podcast and through all the places. But I teach this concept called the layers of protection. And we have like the essentials. I need to start calling them in the base layers, right? So it's like your underwear, your bra, so to speak. And these are the things that you really have to do, like even as a hobbyist from the beginning before you get your first client. And that's like contract. Like you need to have a contract. That's really important. Ideally, you should have insurance. So contract insurance. And then from the tax perspective, like you need to be doing extremely basic bare minimum bookkeeping. And all that really looks like is like open a Google sheet and log your income and log your expenses, right? And then you have to pay your taxes. So that's contract insurance, track your income and expenses, pay your taxes. If you're doing that, you can probably make it pretty far in your business without getting audited or getting sued, right? That's really what this all boils down to.
I swear if I had $1 for every time someone asked me, how can I repurpose my content easier and faster? I'd probably be a millionaire, but I always refer people to repurpose.io. Now, this is not to be confused with my own little mini course that's only $37 that shows you exactly how to do all of this, create one long form piece of content, and then repurpose it up to like 26 different times. That course is also called Repurpose. So that's why I say don't confuse it with that. This is a different website called repurpose.io. You can hook up all of your social media channels there, and then you can set up workflows to either publish manually or automatically. So let's say you want to take your TikTok like I do and put it on other platforms like Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and various other ones. You can hook all of that up and make it happen seamlessly and automatically so that you don't have to worry about it. And the best part is that it does all this watermark free. So you don't have to worry about downloading it on a different app or anything like that. It makes everything so much easier, truly. So if you want to try repurpose.io, you can use this link, which is renee.io/tryrepurpose. renee.io/tryrepurpose. Okay, go there and then use the code ELEVATE, all capitals, ELEVATE, and you're going to get 20% off. I'd love to know how you feel about it. And also check out that $37 course because this is going to walk you through the why of how you're going to want to do all this. And it also comes with a really cool spreadsheet for you to keep track of everything if you want to get really nerdy and really organized. So it's a pretty digestible course. It's only going to take you about an hour to get through the whole thing. And it's packed with lots of good social media information.
And then from there, like we have really, really low cost things to help people with those things. But once people get past that, that's when we start to work with people one-on-one and through our group coaching program to form the LLC, do the S Corp, get the trademarks, look at copyrights, get a better bookkeeping system, cash flow management, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Now, the whole like LLC versus S Corp, I know you have a blog post about this too, and you probably have multiple like sources about it out there.
Yeah.
Because it's a hot topic, right? You probably hear it a lot. But for anybody who's listening, what would you like? You can't, advise people without seeing their businesses. I realize that. But the main difference, one or two of the main differences that would be, because a lot of people I talk to, they're like, what do you mean? I'm an LLC. Why do I need to be an S Corp? And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's better, but go talk to Braden because I'm an S Corp.
The first thing people need to understand is that an S Corp is not actually really a type of legal entity. It's just tax status.
Yeah.
So typically what happens is you start out as a sole proprietor. And then we want to form an LLC for legal reasons, really, because it provides liability protection. It's going to protect your personal assets in the event that you get sued or you have an issue, right? Also, it helps structure all your assets for future business sale, all this kind of stuff. So the LLC is kind of our starting point. You can form an LLC or a corporation, and then at a certain point, you can elect for that underlying business entity to get the benefits of subchapter S of our tax code. And that's when we say that you have an S corporation. And the way that works is you have to get on payroll and pay yourself a salary. And that salary needs to be reasonable under the law. And then you're going to pay self-employment taxes plus income taxes on your salary. So when you don't have an S Corp, 100% of your business profit, you're paying income taxes, federal and state, and you're paying self-employment tax, which includes Medicare and Social Security. That's a 15.3% tax. Once you form your S Corp, you only have to pay that additional tax on your salary, and any additional profit you have in your business, you don't pay that tax on. So that's how it saves you money. But you have to make enough. You have to make enough money in order to put yourself on that payroll and have the profit left over for it to make sense.
I hope that made sense to you guys, because seriously, that's really what it is. And I think that a lot of people tend to, just like anything else, tend to overcomplicate like the whole process, right? So you can kind of just break it down in like a really simple, like here's what it is. Because I do hear that a lot, like a lot of creatives, obviously, as I'm sure, because I know you work with a lot of creatives as well in what you do, we kind of fall into it. We kind of fall into this creative business because we're good at it, or somebody tells us we're good at it. And then we're like, oh, we can make a business at it. And then we're like, oh, that means we actually have to do all these things that make us want to like pull our eyelashes out and not want to do. So that's why people like you are around. So, that's what I tell people all the time. Like, go, if this is not something that you're good at, don't try and, fit yourself into that square peg, right? Like, just don't, if that is something that's going to be a very big roadblock in your business, let's say, go and find someone who can help you with it and get it done, because there's other people that is your superpower. For some reason, you really like it. I can't imagine why, but
come work with us in the Not Your Average Law Firm. We'll be happy to help you.
What you mainly do, you're a lawyer and you have your own firm, right? So like, kind of like walk me through what that looks like for you. Like what is like a typical, I guess, client of yours would be dealing with?
A typical client. I thought you were going to say a typical day. And I was like, well, I
can tell you could do that too.
Well, typical client we work with a lot of folks in the wedding industry. So like I'm speaking at Wedding MBA this year again. We have a lot of wedding folks, and then a lot of just general creatives. So I would say we're like 30% wedding industry, 30% other creatives, which is like a lot of interior designers, web designers, graphic designers, business coaches, business consultants. And then since I'm in this whole online education course creator membership space, that's another big chunk of our audience. So, I mean, we have the contract club, which you probably know about, all of the contracts you could like ever need, all for $30. Brand new, like people who don't even have their first client will grab that and maybe join like one of our programs. And then we do one-on-one bookkeeping. We file tax returns because I'm a tax attorney and I have a tax preparer and bookkeeper that works for me. We do that kind of stuff, and like one-on-one contract drafting for multi-six-figure and seven-figure businesses. So it kind of runs the gamut.
It's a lot. Is it only for like the tax stuff that you guys do? Is it only for California? Because I know you're in San Diego, right?
No, we do all over the US. Actually, nice. I have 5 or 6 employees now. And they're all on the East Coast.
Awesome. Yeah, because that's a question I get too from a lot of people is like, how do I find somebody? And, does it have to be somebody local, that kind of stuff. So that's really good to know.
Tax work we can do nationwide. I started out working with digital nomads as a niche. I've kind of moved away from that, but every once in a while we get people who are international, because I took a lot of international tax classes in my master's program, which is super fun. Yeah, it's great. I have an attorney that works with me now, a tax preparer, a marketing person. So it's great because they do a lot of the client work. And then this is the third podcast I've done today. And I was working on a blog post earlier. So then I get to spend my time doing a lot of that kind of stuff, which is fun for me.
Yeah, no, I get that. I try and schedule all of my like extroversion stuff on like one day as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Myers-Briggs earlier, what your friend does. It sounds really fascinating, by the way. I'll definitely have to get her info because I'm very into the Myers-Briggs stuff as well. And I'm totally an introvert. And most people are like, no, you're not. And I'm like, no, I absolutely 100% am. I just extrovert on certain days. So
I feel that.
you gotta do what works for you. One of the things that I hear about from a lot of my clients and just kind of in, various groups that I'm in are like the whole copyright infringement situation, and now with AI, we're kind of entering into like this whole uncharted territory, right? So what would be a good piece of advice, or it's something that you've seen that happens a lot, right? With photographers mainly in particular, that you could kind of like help people navigate. Maybe you can see something coming a mile away, that kind of stuff. Have you dealt with any of that kind of stuff, or what's kind of some good advice you would?
Yeah, a little bit. Like the whole AI thing, I don't even want to get into. We're going to write, we're working on it. Maybe I should have AI write our blog post on the legal ramifications of using AI for copywriting. That would be very meta and interesting.
Very.
An attorney group that I'm in just promoted the US Copyright Office is going to do a webinar on like AI and copyright. So I might have to sign up for that. First of all, what is copyright? A lot of people think they know, they don't really know. Copyright, this is copyright with an R, R-I-G-H-T, which is different from copywriting with a W, which is, when you hire a copywriter. So copyright with an R is the legal thing, and copyright protects works of authorship. So for your clients or your listeners, for a lot of folks, that's going to be the photography, but the W copyright can also be copyrighted, if that makes sense, right? Because that's a work of authorship, right? So I have a copyright on my book, so people can't steal my words. So when it comes to our industry, it's a lot of people lifting website copy, which is a copyright issue. And then stealing photographs is another big copyright issue. I also see people using stock photography outside of the licensing terms. So you have to be careful about that. If you go someplace like Unsplash or you pay for a stock photography membership, what are the licensing rights that you have to that? A lot of them will have like general and commercial rights. If you ever plan on using anything in your business, you probably need to pay for commercial rights because you're using it for money-making purposes, which is important to know too.
For sure. Definitely the stealing of images is something that, it's been happening for a long time, obviously. But it still does happen. So if something like that does happen to somebody, what would their first course of action be in that case? Like, what would they even try and do? Reach out to the person? Like, do you actually get confrontational, or,
you reach out to the person. Because you always like want to approach it with some benefit of the doubt. Like maybe they just didn't know. Maybe it was their assistant that did it. A lot of people play dumb when this happens. We've all been there, right? You email the client, be like, you can't do that. And they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. Or like, you've emailed them 4 times about their past due invoice. And they're like, I totally forgot. It's their way of saving face because they don't want to feel bad about it. So a lot of the times that someone breaches your copyright, if you just send them an informal email about it and ask them to stop, then they're like, in their mind, they're thinking like, oh shit, I got caught, but I'm going to like respond to this email pretending like I didn't do this intentionally, but then they stop.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is if this is something that they've shared on the internet, you can do a DMCA takedown. So if someone's taken your photographs and put them on their website, you can, like if they are on Squarespace or if this is on YouTube, then you can do something called a DMCA takedown notice to have Squarespace or YouTube actually restrict their content. And then the next step after that would be to work with an attorney. But you can also, if you have an attorney, you can do that before you do the DMCA takedown, the DMCA nonsense, bullshit, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but it happens. It's happened to me a bunch. But most of the time, it's like you said, like reaching out and it's done. It's just
Yeah.
amazing to me that people still try and get away with that in today's age. Like it's just
Yeah,
so.
they just people get late. Like people get late. We just had one of our clients last week. They've had several people create competing businesses to theirs, which is not, wrong. We live in a capitalist society. Like competition is a thing. But she has like a very specific niche and she's kind of cornered the market on it. She's the person that's like known for this thing. And now she's had a few copycats pop up. And I'm like, well, you can't really keep them at bay, but they've all chosen business names that are very similar. And then one person in particular actually like copied and pasted her website copy. So that person we emailed and we're like, hey, pop off, like go start your new business. But like, I'm showing you images of like copy that is verbatim the same. So let's not be doing that.
let's not be doing that. Yeah. The other thing that I see too, well, specifically with photographers as well, but is collaborative stuff, right? Like, so what are some of the issues? Is that more like a contract issue at that point where, let's say like, a lot of photographers or creatives want to do something collaborative with maybe makeup artists or stylists or, various different other sort of creatives, and you're coming together to work on a project. Do you really need to have a contract in place for that? Like, and if so, like, are there certain specifications that you should be thinking about when you do that?
Yeah. I mean, you should have a contract for pretty much everything, right? So when it comes to those kind of people come to me all the time. They're like, I'm starting a partnership. And I'm always like, no, you're not. You're starting like a joint venture. You're starting like a project, right? This is just it's a legal technicality. If you say partnership to an attorney, we think you're starting a new business with a business partner where you will both own the business 50-50, which is different from like, we're going to work on this project and like sell this thing and split 50% of the proceeds of like this specific thing. In which case you need to have a contract. Who owns the copyright to whatever is created? So if you're going to create like an online course with someone, who owns the copyright? How are you going to do reimbursement for expenses? Are you both going to put money into the project? How are you both getting paid out? Management control, all this kind of stuff. And then copyright on its own, like there's a lot of nuance there as well.
Sure. What's the deal with trademarking as well, right? So a lot of people ask, like, when should I trademark something? Should I trademark my business? Like, like there's this whole thing. And I've even just had that conversation, and just with some of my peers who are also coaches and in the digital content creation space. Is that something you guys deal with over there or?
Yeah, we do. I always say that whenever you hit the point where you think to yourself, oh, it would be so awful if I had a rebrand right now. Like if I had to choose a new business name and like get a new logo and update everything on my website, like that's when you should get a trademark, because that's when you have a name that should be protected. Now, whether you can get your trademark registered is a different question, because your trademark has to be unique enough. There's all these different like requirements, different kind of question, but people can fill out our contact form and we can do that research for them.
Yeah. So is that the best way to go about it too, is to like, obviously, not go that on your own? I mean, I don't even know if you can do that on your own, but most people I know go through an attorney who specifically.
You don't want to file your own trademark. People do, and sometimes it's successful. So if you have a friend that filed their own trademark, they're going to tell everyone under the sun that they can do it on their own, because it's one of those things where it's not an issue until you have an issue. And then when you have an issue, it's going to typically, if you come to us and you're like, I filed this trademark, I got an office action back from the USPTO examining attorney, which means there was something wrong with your trademark application, or they're saying it's too similar to a different trademark. Well, now it might be much more time intensive for us to fix that issue than if we just done the application differently from the beginning and potentially avoided that issue.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely think it's an interesting conversation for sure. It's not something I've gone through myself, but I do know, like I said, peers who have, and people are definitely actively searching for that information. So I wanted to make sure we kind of covered it. Most of my clients, I find in my audience, I would say are, like I said before, they're creatives and they don't necessarily, maybe they've got money issues, or they don't understand their finances, or they don't have a good system and they just feel overwhelmed by everything. Right. And so the tax situation can feel like absolutely overwhelming to them. And they do like the bare minimum. Maybe they have just like a basic spreadsheet, like you were talking about before, but the keeping up with it is really difficult for them because of their brains and, you know, needing things to be novel and entertaining to keep their attention or whatever it is. Or maybe it's just like overwhelming and scary. And we tend to like run away from shit that's scary, right? In that space, you know, other than just telling somebody like, put your big girl panties on and get it done. What, what do you tell people? You know, are there systems that work better for people? Like, is there software that works better for people? Is there a way to keep up with stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just do have to like pull on your big girl pants and like get the work done, right? But when it comes to the number stuff, like it doesn't have to be that complicated. Like we sell a spreadsheet template. It takes, you know, like most people can do their bookkeeping in 15 minutes a week. That's what I recommend. You do it every Friday. It takes you like 15 minutes and not that hard. You're really just tracking stuff, put it into categories. Once you have a lot of stuff you need to track because you're making a lot of money, well, then you should probably get on QuickBooks because it can automate it. And if you don't want to do it, hire someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you have so many transactions that it's getting too complicated, well, then that tells me that you're making a lot of money. And if you're making a lot of money and you don't want to do it, well, then hire someone. And if you're making a lot of money, but you don't have money to hire someone, then your expenses are probably way overboard and you need to cut some of them out.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I was just having this conversation on a coaching call with my group coach and Keeps as well. It was about bookkeeping in particular. And somebody was saying that exact thing. Like, there's just too many things going on. Like, I just can't keep up with it. I do well with it for maybe like a month or so. And then that's it. Like, you know, they get busy because they're busy and actually have business, but then it goes to the side. And I was like, it's literally time for you to hire somebody. Like at this point, if you've got the funds to do that, or you can at least allocate it, and definitely look at your expenses to see what you're spending money on. Cause you're probably spending money on stuff that you maybe don't need, or might be a nice to have and not a necessity. And, I think a bookkeeper is like kind of a necessity for those of us who just don't have that brain.
Yeah.
It's a good stepping stone as well to hire other people.
Outsource it. It'll free up more time for the things that you are good at, which will bring you more clients.
Yeah. That's a really scary topic. Do you find that happens in your groups as well, that people are either really not averse, but like afraid maybe, or they just they don't really outsource as quickly as they should? Is that something that you kind of see a lot? I see it a lot in my audience, whether it's like just for their editing or whatever is like creating a bottleneck in their business. They're really afraid to go ahead and take that leap because it's spending money. And so they kind of get afraid of it. But the return on it is huge, right? Yeah,
we try to coach them through it, but it's always, there's like different archetypes. There's some people who spend way too much money and have no money left to pay themselves. But then even those people are spending all over their money on like gear, right? It's like, okay, well, the $20,000 you spend on camera equipment isn't going to get you like the client that you can charge $5,000 more to, right? It's not happening typically. Or they're like buying every course under the sun and not ever going through them, which as a course creator, I always like hate to say, because I've had people actually email me and say, well, I wanted to join your program, but you really encouraged me to look at my numbers really hard. But you know, that's what I got to do. So, and then there are other people who are operating at like 90% profit and they don't want to spend any money. And I'm like, you're working 70 hours a week and you could be making more money if you would spend a little bit of money on people who would help you get more ROI in your business.
Yeah. No, I definitely see both of that as well.
Yeah.
A lot. I think the thing that I see most, though, I would have to say, is just them not knowing, literally not even really knowing what's going on with their money, not really being in it, right? Like not having that weekly date with their money and going over their stuff and not being able to project. And so then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time until it gets like super scary and they're just kind of running blind. I don't know.
Yeah. As the CEOs of our businesses, like we are the decision makers, and it's almost baffling to me, but like not really, because I'm so used to it. How many people are just making decisions, like flying by the seat of their pants. And your numbers are the data. The data is telling you, like, these are the indicators that are telling you what's working and what's not working in the business. And if you're not tracking the numbers, then you can't really make effective decisions. Oh, this is another big reason, aside from just tax compliance and because we legally have to, why we need to be tracking the numbers.
It's a big one. And I know it's scary for people, but if it's scary, like you got to look at it, right? The more you run from it, I always tell people, the more you run from something, like the bigger it's going to get. It's just like anything else. Like you just got to stop and stand and look at it and say, okay, this is scary, and admit, like, I don't necessarily know how to navigate this, but I do know that I can find a solution somehow. I'm going to put on my big girl pants and figure it out. And that's really kind of what it comes down to, is like you were saying before, guiding people through that and helping them figure these little pieces out. So that's why I love what you do specifically, because you do have like you said, lots of low cost options for people to just kind of jump in, whether it's just the contracts to get started out or whatever it is. Just start somewhere and see kind of where that takes you. Because you don't know what you don't know at the end of the day. And that's why I wanted to kind of have you on, just to kind of get that on people's radar, really. If they're not thinking about it, or if they're super new, especially, this is something you need to be thinking about right out of the gate, is like, all right, if you're serious and you're making this your business, it's time to actually take yourself seriously and get some training. And I agree too. I wanted to back up. I agree with the whole like buying multiple things and not using any of them. That is like rampant, I think, in just like most of our markets, but especially with creatives and especially with people with like spicy brains, it's like, oh, I need this. And then you don't finish any of it. It just kind of sits there online and you end up like, just like, I have all these tools, but I don't know what to do with it. And now I need somebody to actually walk me through it. If that's you need to slow your roll and like really look at those numbers and decipher, okay, what's actually going to move my business forward, and one thing at a time. So even if you shoot yourself in the foot and tell people not to buy your course, I agree. I would rather you not invest in something that you're not going to use. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't, I don't want you doing that. But I don't want to keep you all day. I did want to bookend with a little bit of, it's a question I ask most of my guests, pretty much all of them, if I remember to. You are pretty strategy focused, I would say, right? As an attorney and a tax professional. And so you have a lot of strategies that are like tried and true. What's your dash of woo? What's your like woo-woo stuff? I know you said you had to like call your mom to find out your birth chart. Are there things that you do that are like considered a little bit woo or out there or whatever?
Well, yeah, kind of. I'm a big fan of Denise Duffield Thomas. If you know her, I've read most of her books. And I think I just like commented this on someone's Facebook post today. I do the whole, I probably shouldn't be saying this on public platforms, but I think it's still unique enough that people won't figure it out. But my computer login password is always like whatever my current like financial goal is, right? So some variation of that, which is great because it's the first thing I have to type in my computer when I start my workday is like the goal that I'm shooting for. And the way I'm sure I didn't originate this is my re-explanation of several different things that I've read. But I am one of the people who does think that in many respects, manifestation is bullshit. But I more think that it's bullshit in the way like a lot of people interpret it and talk about it. They're just like, oh, I manifested this. It's like, well, you did, but you also like worked for it, right? But my version of manifestation is that simply when we write down our goals. So if I write down like my goal is to get 5 clients for this new offer by the end of the month, and I think about it all the time and I write it down and I type it out, it really is just like planting it in my subconscious. And so when an opportunity passes my direction, it's an opportunity that before I may not have noticed as an opportunity, but now that I constantly have the goal in mind, I then recognize it as an opportunity when it does cross my path, and I'm able to capitalize on it more quickly, more easily, and more readily. And then it's more likely to actually manifest and come true. So that's like my version of woo. And how I've gotten. See, that's the thing is like I wouldn't even really call that spiritual. I feel like I've put my own practical spin on it that just makes it like a practical, logical thing rather than a spirituality thing. Yeah, but that's it.
That's the Virgo. That's the Virgo in you. We can't help it. We cannot help it. My husband is a filmmaker and an actor, and like our whole lives, like movies is our thing, right? So we've seen a lot of movies. And he hates He hates going to movies with me sometimes because literally, like, a few minutes in, I look at him, I'm like, never could happen. 100% never can happen. And he's like, you have to suspend, and he's like, how can you be that person and also still be like this spiritual, like manifestation? I'm like, no, I get it. But like, there's always going to be this logical side of me that kind of steps in and goes, I call bullshit on that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always going to like kind of poke around a little bit and see what else I can find. So I do love that. I like that. But I do think it is like your version, right, of manifestation or spirituality, what do you want to call it? You can like wrap it up in many different ways. What matters is that it works for you. Yeah. And that's what matters. Like you found a system that works for you. And it's like implanting. That's kind of like neuroscience based too, if you really want to get technical about it, right? Because you're just embedding a thought into your unconscious, and they've actually done studies that works. So it is woo, but it's not. It's a little bit of both. And I love that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I love. I think that's cool. That's a really good fun tip too. Using your income goal as your most current password or logins or whatever. That's a cool little hack. Well, tell everybody where to find you. Where is the place that you like to connect with people the most if they want to like chat with you? Or, I mean, obviously we're going to link to your website and that kind of stuff, but what social platform do you like the most?
Assuming that everyone listening is a podcast listener, they should go tune in to Unfuck Your Biz with Braden, asterisk for the U, and you'll find me. You can follow me on social media at Braden Adam Drake, Braden, Adam like the biblical figure, Drake like the rapper. And then my website, the Not Your Average Law Firm, which is notavglaw.com.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. This was super fun chatting with you. I didn't realize we had so many, personality traits in common.
Yeah, it was great.
That's cool.
Thanks for having me. Woo!
Awesome.
Fun and knowledgeable, right? Okay. What a fun episode. Thank you so much, Braden, for being here and chatting with me. And I know that you guys are going to get some really good takeaways from this. And I'd love to hear what they are. So you know where to find me, at Renee Bowen over on Instagram or Threads, which is the new fun place to be. I'm actually going to be doing a podcast about Threads on next week's podcast. So I definitely want you to tune into that. I have some insights and ideas for you on how to use that platform. But yeah, hit me up over on Instagram. Shoot me a DM or tag me at Renee Bowen. Let me know what you thought of this episode. And I'm going to put all the information on where you can hook up with Braden and ask him some questions or look into his courses, membership, and his podcast, of course. All that's going to be in the show notes. So, what are you going to do this week to move your business forward? That's what I want to know. Let me know, tag me on social, and stay accountable. And I hope you guys have a really amazing, productive, and fun week ahead. Love you guys. Mean it. Talk soon.